Maybe you've broken a law or two, stolen a pack of gum, driven over the speed limit, or taken a photo under a no trespassing sign. Maybe it was peer pressure. After all, humans do crazy things for love. But would you ever commit a major crime just to impress someone? FBI investigators spent years trying to track down criminal Heather Tallchief, though her trail was ice cold from the moment she disappeared. When they finally had her in cuffs, they were stunned to learn how she'd pulled off her crime and what she'd been doing for the past 12 years. Heather Tallchief was interested in medicine. In the years before her crime, she worked as a caregiver at a hospice in her home city of San Francisco. Despite being a well-loved employee, her exposure to old age and death left her jaded. She found herself with increasingly negative thoughts. One night in 1992, Heather was approached by a man at a bar. He went by many pseudonyms, but his true name was Roberto Solis. He was 27 years her senior, yet the attraction was instant. They went back to his apartment, where he insisted on reading her tarot cards. She agreed. As Roberto shuffled the cards, Heather noticed the skulls and candles cluttering up his apartment. Despite red flags, she'd fallen under his spell. Roberto would later reveal his entire criminal past to her, but for now, he was a captivating enigma. According to his reading, they had a future in Las Vegas together. In an unlikely move, Heather left San Francisco for Vegas and moved in with the charismatic criminal. The young woman trusted this man completely. He gave her the kind of affection she'd never received before. Not too long after moving, Heather applied to be a driver of armored vehicles, supplying cash to all the major casinos on the Vegas Strip. She was a beautiful girl with perfect references and no criminal background. The man-driven industry employed her with no suspicion. After performing shockingly well on her firearm evaluation, Heather was swiftly promoted. She'd only been on the job for a couple months and was now transporting millions in unmarked bills to the biggest casinos in the country. She became very popular among her colleagues, particularly the men. To avoid attention, Heather would wear fake glasses and rugged boots, which only enchanted her coworkers more. Many admitted having crushes on her. Heather's allure became overwhelming when she suddenly disappeared on October 21st, 1993. It was a Friday. The Strip was packed with gamblers and tourists, all rubbing shoulders as they stuffed money into the pockets of casino owners. No one knew one of the greatest heists in Las Vegas history was about to take place. Heather was going about the job as usual. As she drove with over $3 million in unmarked bills, you might assume her heart was racing. But her coworkers recall her relaxed demeanor. Her shoes, however, told a different story. On her feet, Heather had traded her rugged boots for a pair of dress shoes. Her coworkers thought she might be headed to a fancy dinner after work. Still, it was an odd clothing choice, considering it was the biggest changeover day of the year. At around 8 a.m., Heather and her coworkers pulled up to their first stop. She was left alone as the men unloaded the first batch of bills into the casino. When her coworkers returned outside, Heather and the truck were nowhere to be found. Heather had driven to a rented garage only minutes away. To avoid suspicion, Roberto pretended to be in an armored car repair business. The couple left the vehicle in the garage, took the $3 million, and set off to the airport. By the time the FBI had caught wind, the couple had escaped for good. Roberto and Heather had planned for months. They left false names, addresses, workplaces, and phone numbers to throw the authorities off their trail. They forged multiple driver's license and identifications in foreign countries. With incredible foresight, Roberto and Heather managed to remain undercover for 12 years. Heather Tallchief became third on the FBI's list of most wanted fugitives, making her the most wanted woman in America. This was the highest level reached by a woman in 23 years. But after committing such an explosive crime at such a young age, would Heather be content living in secret for her entire life? Shortly after the couple's escape, Roberto began cheating on Heather. He treated her poorly and brought other women into their home. She found herself doing drugs and drinking excessively. After 2 years, Heather got pregnant. After giving birth, she decided to take her infant son and flee. Having a child changed Heather's outlook. For a decade, she managed to stay hidden from the government. Once her son turned 10, Heather decided to turn herself in. She hired an experienced lawyer to oversee her surrender and flew to an airport in Nevada. There, she admitted to her identity and was placed under arrest. Heather gave a full confession to the authorities. She told them all the cunning ways her and Roberto managed to stay hidden, and yet they were astonished by Heather in particular. They asked her how she managed to stay incognito for a full decade while continuing to raise a child. The young woman had started a brand new life in the Netherlands. She met another man and raised her child to know him as his father. Once her son reached the age of 10, Heather came forward with her crimes. By being a present mother, she hoped her son would sympathize with her mistakes. Heather was sentenced to just over 5 years in prison. On top of this, she was to spend her life paying back the $3 million to the security company. In 2010, she was released from prison and now remains a low-profile member of society, assumed to be reunited with her son. Roberto was never found. Logical thinking helped Heather commit one of the most seamless crimes in history, but it also encouraged her to come forward for the sake of her son. This admission landed her a mild sentencing and an opportunity to free herself from a life of crime. The FBI isn't so lucky with other criminals.